What is up, guys, and welcome to the Meeple Minded podcast, the podcast where we talk all things tabletop gaming. My name is Jason.
And I'm James.
How are you doing this week, James?
I'm not too bad, Jason.
Good, good. You're having a nice week off this week,
I
aren't
am
you?
having a nice week off. Today was the first day.
I know, doesn't he sound more happy, everyone?
I know. I'm not putting up with work.
It's my turn to be the miserable one this week. Work has been hell. You know, I'm not going to complain about work. I don't really care all that much, to be honest. Work is work. We have to do it to pay the bills. So, James, gaming this week. How's it been? Have you been doing some in your off time?
No, but it's only day one, so...
Oh, it was day one of your off.
Literally
okay.
Day one.
Oh, that's all right then. Well, you're not off yesterday. I suppose you were off yesterday, but that was your normal day off.
That's my normal day off. It's my first day of holiday today.
Okay. Have you been up to much?
No.
No?
And it's been bliss.
So you've literally just monged out on the sofa, I'm guessing.
Well, in my room, because my nephew was running around in the front room, so I didn't fancy babysitting on my first day off.
Fair enough. PC gaming, I'm guessing? Or just TV time?
A bit of both.
Bit of both.
A bit of both. But yeah, just a relaxing day. I might be a little bit more productive. In fact, I will be a little bit more productive tomorrow. But it's like, no, first day of holiday, I'm just going to do nothing.
Nice, nice. You got a bit of a social event going on tomorrow, haven't you, from what I remember you telling me?
Well, if you count going to the cinema as a social event.
It is a social event. It is a social event. You're seeing friends that you don't usually get to see all that much. As often as you see me, for example. Because you see me pretty much every day, you poor person.
I know. Really got to get this chain off my...
I mean, it's your fault. You're the one that keeps phoning me.
Yeah.
And going, I'm bored.
Yeah, well, that's because I know that you'll be equally bored.
True.
Because,
very true.
You're a sad loner just like I am. So if there's one person who's guaranteed to not be doing anything, it's you.
But I have a partner, James. Just remember that. I do have a partner.
You do. But
I mean, granted, she's not here the majority of the time, but yes. Yeah.
Like I said,
I'm pretty bored most evenings.
I know you too well.
Indeed we do. Now, we had a little bit of a discussion before we turn the mics on today, James, and come to the realization that this week has been a rather atrocious week for gaming for you with regards to the tabletop.
It has. I have played unmatched.
And nothing else.
No, unmatched
that's
at the
rather
gaming
shocking.
world. It is.
It's rather shocking. However, we did introduce someone new to the game. So
yes,
that was...
We are doing it again on Monday.
We are. There's more people that want to learn ML. Fancy that. I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to play Unmatched again next week. We're playing a lot of that.
We are.
But I do feel like once Games Expo's out of the way and we've done our little tournament at Expo, I think we might... no, that's a lie. We're not going to give it a rest. I love that game too much.
And it is that sort of, between the two of us, gone, well, we have to at least play all the characters that you have once so that we're not surprised when we go into said tournament.
Yeah. And you blatantly know what's going to happen is we're going to be given characters we've never played before.
Yeah. We are prepared by playing every character that Jason owns. Therefore, in the grand scheme of the universe, we will both get characters that you don't own.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it happening. And I don't care. I think that's always fun, actually. I'm up for the challenge.
Yes.
Though being an elimination tournament, I can see us being out pretty quickly.
I think no matter what we do, we're going to be out pretty quick.
But again, I am really... kind of looking forward to that. So, yep. I mean, games we played this week. James, that was an easy one for you. I obviously joined you in playing Unmatched. I have played a few other games. But although the rest of my games have been digital, I played Ark Nova on Board Game Arena. It's now been added onto Board Game Arena. So I'm very happy about that because now I get to play Ark Nova whenever I so want without having a monster of a setup on my table. And then having to get people around the table to play it. So that's really cool to be playing on Board Game Arena. Acropolis is another one I've been playing on Board Game Arena quite a lot. When you arrived, I was playing Azul and getting beaten.
Yes.
Only by 1 point, for the record. And that's only because they pulled a snide right at the end of the game.
Doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, Jason. Winning is winning.
Yes, they managed to beat me right at the end of us all. I was in good spirits though. I was very, very pleased for them with their win. There was not any form of remorse or resentment or anything like that.
Oh no! You weren't cursing at the screen when I walked in.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'll tell you something I have played, James, and I know you'll know this game. I got to play Star Wars Destiny on Tabletop Simulator the other day.
Ooh.
Yeah, I found someone online who was looking for a game of it, and do you know what? I've really been missing playing it. So I got to play it, and I lost. Because I completely forgot how to play. I had a few of my old decks saved on Tabletop Simulator, and I immediately tried to play with them, completely forgetting that I can't remember anything about the game. So yeah, I got beat quite quickly, despite the fact that I had quite powerful decks. A bit of Star Wars Destiny on Tabletop Simulator, and then finally I played a little bit of Library Labyrinth as well. That obviously wasn't digital, that was in person with a couple of friends. But yeah, I've been playing a fair bit. However, this week, James, this coming week, is going to be Game-a-thon for us, isn't it?
It is.
We've got a lot going on. Because you're off, I'm going to be able to drag you to Paul's game day.
You are.
On Sunday. We've got our game club on Monday.
Yep.
We have arranged gaming for Tuesday with Anthony from the MTVB podcast at his house.
Yep.
Wednesday, we're doing our Wednesday night gaming at my house.
Yep.
Thursday, we're taking a little bit of a break, and we'll be doing 2 podcast recordings because, spoiler alert, in case you haven't been listening, UK Games Expo is coming.
Yep.
And we need to prepare for that. So that will be next week. I don't think we've got nothing arranged for Friday because that will be the day that I end up going up north to get my son. So that's a decent chunk of gaming there, James.
That is a decent chunk of gaming.
Is there any particular games you want to play in that span of time?
No. I'm just looking forward to whatever's slapped on the table.
Excellent. Right. So, what games does James hate? Cupcake Academy, James.
If you put that out, Jason.
We all know you love Cupcake Academy, Jason, and any dexterity game for that matter. If you're not at work, you're not driving all that much, so a bit of Cobra Paw might work because you don't need your fingers for anymore, do you? I can crack your fingers.
Why did you punch Jason in the face? Oh, I thought that's what the token was.
Probably would be if I was laughing too much, to be fair. My head tends to hit the table when I laugh. But yeah, no, we've got a decent amount of gaming time, James. We're going to get some decent games played. I definitely want to try getting... I really want to get Root to the table again.
Yes.
We haven't played that in a while. I think Root might need to be one. I think when we're playing games with Ant, I think he's up for a bit of Heroes of the Grid as well. Power Rangers. Ooh. Maybe get that going. Some games we haven't played for a while, basically, is what I think we're hitting. Maybe a bit of Starship Captains as well. I've been missing playing that. But yeah, anyway, that's games we played this week and some that we're going to be playing this coming week, I think. But James, do you know the game that we played last year?
No.
No, okay. Well, the ironic thing, obviously... The listeners will have seen the title of this episode. We're going to be talking about Starfighters Rapid Fire from Alley Cat Games. And purely by coincidence, and it genuinely was coincidence, because I didn't look what game we played until about half an hour ago. This time last year, we played Alley Cat Games Dice Hospital.
Ah.
Yes. So... the coincidence there is that we're obviously a year apart. We're doing a different game. But what's your thoughts on Dice Hospital a year on, James?
I still enjoy it. I mean, we played it not that long ago. One of the Wednesday night.
Yeah.
One of the Wednesday nights. And yeah, it was just as fun as I remember it.
Yeah.
I killed a lot of people.
You did. You did indeed. And I'm right there with you. I still love that game. I think I said a couple of weeks ago on the episode where we talked about playing it, that it actually made its way into my top 5 worker placement games when I went on to Anthony's podcast to talk about it.
Yeah, the only thing with Dice Hospital is I always get the urge to or the itch to play something of that theme, but just a little bit more in depth.
Yeah,
every time I play it.
I'm really hoping, because obviously I backed the Hero game on Kickstarter not that long ago. I'm hoping that might scratch that itch. A little bit. I know there was another game that was on Kickstarter for a little while that really looked a lot more heavyweight, but it never funded, and they said they were going to go away, work on it a bit, and then come back. So I'm hoping that does come back. But for now, I think Hero will possibly scratch that itch. But in the meantime, as just a worker placement, I really like Dice Hospital, and I just the components are good. I was really let down by Dice Theme Park.
Yes.
Now, I don't mind playing it on Board Game Arena, but I don't know why, but the physical game, I just could not get on with it.
Yeah, I was the same. It's like Meeple Land, if you're going to do a theme park based one at the moment.
I mean, theme park games are actually one of the things I'm looking out for at Games Expo this year, because I think there's a 10 Penny Park.
Yep.
Is one that I'm really, really geared up for. I know that I think it's Pandasaurus have got a new theme park-esque one coming, or is out now or something like that, but it's basically a marble run.
Yeah.
You build a coaster out of these 3D pieces, and then you have to roll a marble down it, and you get points for how far it goes, or something along those lines. It looks quite fun, a bit toy gimmick to me, so I'm not sure that's going to be one I will want to buy, but that's definitely one I'd like to try at ideally at Expo if it's there. So, but yeah, James, 1 year on, Dice Hospital, Alley Cat Games, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Good man, me too. Shall we jump into our main game highlight for this week?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okie dokie, guys. So this week's game highlight, we are talking about Starfighters Rapid Fire. What is it? Well, Starfighters is a real-time dice rolling strategic player elimination style game released by Alley Cat Games in 2023. The game is designed to be played by 1 to 4 players aged 10 and up, and it plays in around 30 minutes. At the time of recording, this game, James, can be picked up for as little as £18.50. In Starfighters, players will battle against each other in epic space dogfighting warfare, with the last ship remaining being crowned the victor. To win, players will be frantically rolling dice, placing dice on their player boards to do the actions in the next phase, but beware, because as soon as one player has gone as far as they want to, they will shout fire, and that signals the end of the dice rolling and allocation phase. Have you completed all the tasks you wanted to do? No? Tough. That is basically the game in a nutshell. But what comes in the box if you buy Starfighters Rapid Fire, James?
Okay, Jason. In the box, you will find 4 ship boards, which are double-sided, 1 map board, 36 coloured dice, 4 ship miniatures, and 4 punchboard tokens as optionals instead of the ship miniatures, 1 beacon token, 8 torpedoes, and if you have the deluxe version, they are wooden meeples instead of tokens, 50 shield markers, 12 reactor markers, and 20 hull markers. Okay,
so let's just start this off right, James, and just announce that obviously the version we have here is indeed that deluxe version.
Yes.
Now, I am almost certain that the miniatures that we are undoubtedly going to talk about,
yes,
I believe that in the retail version, they are just punchboard tokens. They are not plastic miniatures.
Oh, see, that's interesting, because on that components list that I've just read out, it actually specifies on the torpedo markers that they are a deluxe upgrade, but it doesn't for the ships.
Interesting.
It just says 4 ships and 4 punchboard tokens. Punchboard tokens are provided as an optional replacement for the miniatures.
Yeah. So that'll be an interesting one, actually, because I genuinely don't know what comes in the retail one. I know that obviously everything that we've talked about there is kind of integral to the game.
Yeah.
So obviously the pieces are going to be there, but in what form? Who knows? Obviously, the only thing we can 100% say is that the torpedoes in a retail version would be punchboard, not the wooden meeples.
Yes.
Cool. So with that in mind, James, let's start our little breakdown here. What do you think of the rule book? Because, I mean, you love it straight away because your components are on the front page.
Oh, I do. I don't even have to open the thing to read the components list. Yeah, it seems very serviceable. As we usually say, the pictures are quite nice and large. Everything's in numbered sections with a little number next to it to tell you which bit of the picture you should be looking at.
Yeah.
In regards to the text. There are also highlighted coloured text and corresponding boxes around it on the pictures, so you know which bit of the board you're looking at when it's when it's been written. It seems to be very well explained. Yes, sensible rulebook.
Yeah, good. So I think really all I could really add myself is obviously as someone who's read the rulebook to teach the game and stuff like that. I think it is really well written. I like the fact that it breaks all the individual phases down into sections and explains them in good detail. I'd probably argue that maybe when we're talking about those individual phases, there might just be just a tiny bit too much text, because it is kind of a big wall of text when you're talking about these things, but by no means does it feel like it's too much when reading.
Yeah.
It gets across the information pretty quickly. It doesn't bloat it out with random nonsense that it doesn't really need to talk about. Does give examples. So maybe on this occasion I can look over that basically block of text. Because I think the other thing to really highlight here is that the rulebook itself and the box that it comes in is not a big box. This is a smaller board game box, so maybe 20 centimeters. So yeah, it's not a particularly big box here, and the rulebook obviously fits that box. So we're not talking A4, but slightly bigger than A5. The illustrations in there I do find pretty good. I do like the fact that they've included the 2 expansions on the back of the rulebook, so there's extra rules and stuff for them. Those 100% do not come in the retail edition. So if you want those, I believe you either have to buy them separately or maybe they're not available separately. I'm not sure, but it does specify they're not in the retail. So we won't be talking about those today. But that is the rulebook. The setup for the game is pretty quick, actually, because it's not a big game. There's a very small board that goes in the middle, which has a few hexes on it, which is where your ships are going to be moving around. And then each player has their own individual player board, which is your HUD or your cockpit, if you so wish, of your staff fighter. And that's it pretty much set up. It's not a difficult game to set up. So, James, components. We're going to drag you back in here. What do you like? What do you dislike? What's your standout of this game?
Okay, so there's lots of things that I like about this game. I quite like the miniatures. Let's start there.
Yep.
Although they are pretty basic, standard plastic, I think they're detailed enough and they're distinct enough. Each ship is distinctly different.
Yeah.
So that's a big win for me. Again, deluxe version, but I really like the wooden torpedoes.
Yes, yeah.
Those are quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love meeples, let's be honest. Yeah, little wooden meeples. And it's not just in the shape of a torpedo, is it? They are, I forget the terminology, but like silk or whatever they call it, like silk screening or something like that. Yeah, where you've got a picture, a silhouette on the meeple to tell you what it is, basically.
Yeah, there's that. The punch board is all durable, and they're quite large punch boards.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I noticed you were playing around with them when before we went.
Yeah, so they're really nice and sturdy. They're not going to bend anytime soon.
Nope.
The shield cubes are standard plastic cubes.
See, I'm going to actually bring up about the shield cubes because I really like these cubes. They are just normal cubes, but
they're kind of translucent purple.
It is that sort of color, isn't it? Because when you think of like a sci-fi shield around a ship, whenever something gets shot at a ship, you always get that sort of, I guess, haze or shimmer around the ship where it's hit the shield and it's just gone badoosh.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of color, and I really, really like it.
Yeah.
A hologram color.
Yeah.
You know, I just think they look really, really cool.
I mean, to me, the only negative I can think of with these components is the dice, which is a bit of a shame as it's a dice rolling game.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that they are very, very cheap dice. And I personally found they didn't roll particularly well. No. And I'm kind of glad that you brought up about the dice, to be fair, because I was wondering whether it was just me, really, when it came to those dice. I did feel like they really were cheap. Yeah. Yeah, they were pretty cheap. I take back a few things that I was going to say about them. Because just before we went live, I was having a little play around with it. They have got indented sides. I thought it was just printed on the side. So it's not as bad as that. They have got indentations for the paint to sit in. But yeah, there's no rounded edges on these die. They don't feel particularly quality. They're quite small by comparison of other games. However, with the amount of dice you are rolling in this game, they kind of need to be that size. Yeah. I would actively say that don't roll well. I could handle the cheapness of them if they had rounded edges, because this game is all about being able to roll those dice, and if they don't roll well... Exactly. And I was finding that I was having to lift up the die higher to drop them from a higher height so that they would bounce and roll. The problem then... is they go everywhere. They go everywhere, and it kind of spurs me into gameplay that I was going to talk about a bit later, but it means for me, every player has to have a dice tray. Yes. Because they go everywhere, and because you're rolling frantically to try and do this stuff,
dice going everywhere, and then suddenly it's like, oh, well, it's strayed into the center of the board and someone else's has strayed at the same time. They're all the same color by necessity of the game. You suddenly lose track of whose is whose.
Yeah.
And then there's confusion going on while, say, in a 4-player game, there's confusion between 2 players while they're trying to sort out what's what. The other 2 players are getting an unfair advantage because they're not involved in that confusion and they're just carrying on with what they're doing.
Yeah, it's quite a big negative, but it's the only negative I have component-wise.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good to only have one negative. So yeah, I mean, everything really negative-wise for me revolves around the dice. I absolutely love these player boards, James. The HUD boards, the cockpit boards. I don't know about you, but like I have this sat in front of me and I literally feel like if I can zone myself out from the rest of the world, I feel like I'm looking at a cockpit display.
Yes.
And I feel like...
Most definitely.
I feel like I'm playing a flight simulator or something on my computer, and all these places here where I'm putting the die as I'm doing stuff, they look like buttons.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm pressing buttons in a cockpit and doing stuff. Like I'm pressing a button and then I'm watching James's ship get hit by a missile, or I'm launching a torpedo or something along those lines. I think, for me, the boards are actually the highlight.
Yeah.
For me, like I like the miniatures, don't get me wrong, but these boards...
And you've not even highlighted the best thing about those boards, which I think is absolutely fantastic about this game.
Mm-hmm.
That they are double-sided.
They are indeed.
So you basically, for the listeners, you get an A and a B side.
Mm-hmm.
If you have play on the A side, everyone's ship is equal. So they have the same shield hit points on the facings. They have the same weapons loadout, the same speeds, all that kind of stuff. So it's basically, if you play on side A, no matter which ship you're playing, they are equal to everyone else's.
Yeah, yeah.
If you play on the B side, all 4 ships are unique.
Yeah, yeah, and they do different things. Things cost more in dies on one thing, but less on others.
Yep. So some have more drives, some have stronger, because like the one you're looking at right now has 4 shields on the front facing, but only 2 on the sides and the back.
Yeah, exactly. Which, if you flip it over for comparison, the standard side, it's just 3 on the front and sides and 2 on the back. And as James just said, the reverse side of that makes it even harder because it's 4 on the front, but then only 2 on the sides and back.
Yep. And it's got 4 drives. It's got different
lasers, weapons, torpedoes, all that kind of stuff as well.
Yep.
And
it has they all have specials, which I quite like.
They do indeed.
So there's replayability there, because you can play the game on the A side to get the hang of it, and then the B side.
Yeah.
And each ship, like we said, is completely unique.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And obviously you've got like a character picture in the corner, which I'm just going to... We're going to talk about it, James. This is Star Fox, the board game, right?
It is.
This is Star Fox, the board game in all but IP. Because, that's basically it's what it is. Do you remember Star Fox?
I do remember. I do remember Star Fox.
I mean, I can't say from when we were younger because I actually played it the other day. But, I mean, it's just... I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the pictures. It's like, it's Star Fox. It's kind of a shame that it's not officially licensed Star Fox, but do you know what? I'm not bothered that it isn't, to be honest, because I can clearly see that that's what it is, but I'm not had to pay through the nose for it.
Yep.
Because if they'd gone with an IP on this, how much more do you think this game would have been? Like I said, it's selling at the moment for around just under 20 quid, somewhere between there. I think the RRP is about 30.
Yeah, I've only just noticed that actually as well on the different sides. If you're on side A, they're just fighter class, but if you flip them over to the B side, all the ships have names as well.
They do indeed. So there's a lot of effort that's gone into these boards, and I think they are pretty cool. The overall thing here, James, is we've already mentioned it. The ships do have shields, but once those shields are destroyed by getting hit by lasers and the such, then you have structure points, which is ultimately your hull points. And I think every ship is exactly the same. You have 5 hull points.
Yep.
As soon as your 5th one is destroyed, you are eliminated from the game.
Oh, but it's a little bit more complicated than that, though, isn't it, Jason? Because you have 5 hull points, and once all 5 are gone, you quite rightly said you are destroyed and you lose. But when you lose hull point number 3, you lose a dice.
You do. But again, this is another thing, James. If you notice, if you flip it over, the different side, it's not the same.
It is on this one. That's a bad example.
That's a really bad example. You're holding the wrong board there, James. For example, this one that I was looking at, on side A, they are all the same.
Yep.
But if you flip it over, this one doesn't suffer that.
Ah.
So even in the structure points and the minusing stuff, doesn't every ship is different. So there is an element of replayability there.
Indeed.
100%. I think a lot of effort went into creating these boards and making them different enough so that, you know, you won't always be playing the same game with these ships. So huge plus marks for me with regards to the player boards. So yeah, I think we can leave components there, James, and move on to gameplay.
Indeed.
Because we've touched on it a little bit, but I think now we can go into it and talk about it properly. James, what do you personally like about the gameplay in this game?
Oh, I love the frantic dice rolling and the howls of the other players when you yell fire and they're not ready.
Oh, yes, yes. Now, I just have to come in and sort of go, real-time games are not my thing, okay? I can't stand being under that kind of pressure and having to make snap decisions and all that kind of things. This game, however, is different. I mean, it's not different. It's exactly the same as every other real-time game in that sense. But it's different to me because of the fact of how of what it's themed on. Now, it works really well as a real-time game because as a dogfighter, as a fighter pilot, you have to make snap decisions, and you have to do that in this game. And that's where that sort of real-time element comes in, because I need to make a decision that keeps me alive so that I go home at the end of the day, but little Jimmy and Charlene don't. They die. They don't get to go home to their families, but I do. You know, and that's what a fighter pilot has to do. Now, obviously, we're talking about fighter pilots in space.
Yes.
Same difference. They still have to make these decisions.
Yes.
Only one of them is going home at the end of the day, James.
And it's me.
No, it's always going to be me.
No, it's me.
I mean, I've never won at this game, but it's always going to be me. So, yeah, I suck at this game, James. And that is purely because like I said, I struggle with that whole, I've got to make a lot of decisions really quickly. So I have to adopt a different strategy here, James.
You do.
And that different strategy for me is frantically roll dice, randomly assign them anywhere I possibly can, and then shout fire before you lot, who are strategically trying to figure out what you're going to do, have managed to succeed in what you want to do. And hopefully I've done it quick enough so that you then don't get to fire your torpedoes or you don't get to shoot your lasers.
I was going to say, it's like, that's why you keep losing, because I put 1 dice on lasers and immediately shout fire. It's like, well, I've shot Jason, therefore I count that as a win.
But yeah, I alluded to it there, Joseph. Do you think this game's a strategic game?
Yes, actually, it is.
Okay.
Quite strategic, because you start off out of range of each other.
Of course, yeah.
So,
as is fair.
Yes, there is an element of I have to move into the right place, be in range, not get stuck, because you can't go off the board.
Nope. Other than the 2 places, James, you've got the 2 wormholes.
Yeah.
Which you can go through, but then you immediately come back out on the other side of the board.
Yeah, I mean, they're great in 2-player games. Anything more than that, you're just going to run straight into someone else.
Yeah, the board is not big, is it?
No.
Like, again, we're talking about the box being 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres.
But the
board is also the same size.
Assuming the A side, we'll talk about the A side here.
Yeah.
You also, because it is space, you have different slots for moving forwards.
Yep.
And different slots for rotation.
Oh, yeah.
On your drives. For assigning dice, and there are 3 slots for each. So you can move forward a maximum of 3 hexes, or you could turn a maximum of 180 degrees, because it's in 60 degrees. Each dice means you could rotate 60 degrees.
Yes.
60, 120, 180.
Yeah. And being a hex is just turn.
Yeah. So you could turn 1, 2, or 3, depending on how many dice you've put in those slots.
Of course, yeah.
So you could be, it's like to hit you, for example. I mean, your lasers are 360 degrees.
Yep.
But if I need to get to you, it's like if I say you're 2 spaces in front of me and off to the left, it's like I could have put the 2 dice in the move forward slots.
Yep.
Someone could have yelled fire before I've got one in the 60-degree turn. So I might blitz straight past you.
Yes, exactly. And obviously with the lasers, they also have a range, which you can only increase by expending dice.
Yes, you have on your lasers section, you have 3 slots for shots.
Yep, which is 1 die rolled per die allocated.
Yes, you have the overcharge section, which increases the damage to 2.
Yep, so if you do damage, it as standard only does 1 damage per
hit.
Per hit, whereas that would up it to 2.
2, and then you have 2 target boxes, which increases your range by 1 hex. Now, not your standard range is 1 hex.
1 hex, yeah.
So you can go to 3 hexes maximum.
Yeah. How do you like that?
I quite like that.
Yeah.
Because do I want to fire multiple times at short range, basically?
Or once at a long range?
Or once with a power shot?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think because you get a set amount of dice to roll.
Yeah.
And there isn't enough to do all of them, for example. Because, again, with the lasers, they have to be red die.
Mm.
You know, you get red, yellow, and blue die. They all have different symbols on, for example. And you have to allocate them on the correct spaces. So it does really make things quite interesting. Because, ironically, especially on that standard side, to fire torpedoes, which are basically put them in the air and then they start moving around by themselves.
Yep.
With every player having a maximum of 2, also uses those same die faces. So you kind of have to make a decision. It's like, well, do I want to fire 3 shots at James, who I reckon he'll try and move closer to me, so I don't need to spend my movement on, my dice on movement because I think he's going to come for me, so I'll let him come to me, but then I'll blitz him with loads of shots.
Yep.
Or do I potentially try and move out of his way, and as I move, drop a torpedo?
Yep. And then I completely ruin your plan by moving away from you and dropping a torpedo.
Exactly, yeah.
I also quite like the fact it really is on that standard side, because we said with the lasers, it's 3 dice for a maximum of 3 shots, which means they're there. But on the torpedo section, you can see on the board the boxes are linked.
Yes.
Which means it's 3 dice to fire 1 torpedo, which means you have to get all 3 dice down before you can release it.
Yeah.
So it really is a choice of lasers or missiles.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I will come back to some positives, but seeing as though you've brought it up, I am going to bring up my first negative.
Yep.
And it is actually that linked box.
Yep.
Sides of things. Because when you start assigning dice in a frantic motion, sometimes, especially in low light, those links are actually quite difficult to see. Now, you might sort of think, in an element of, frantic rolling, you might sort of think, oh yeah, it's fine, I've got enough to shoot my torpedoes, when actually you haven't.
Yeah.
And you might sort of already have some dice that you're still re-rolling and going, well, I don't really need them for the torpedo, so I'll just randomly assign them elsewhere. But then someone shouts fire or you shout fire and you suddenly then go, oh, shiitake mushrooms, I needed that for that.
Yeah.
I now can't do it.
Oh, yes, but Jason, there is a mechanic that might help you with that.
True.
Because there is the fabled yellow dice.
Oh, yes. Yes. What's good about those yellow dice?
The yellow dice have the command symbol on, although some of the other dice do have it as well.
They do, yes.
You can put dice in the HUD.
In the HUD, yes.
And that banks them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that if someone... You have to correct me if I get this wrong.
Yep, go on.
Once someone has yelled fire, you can assign dice from the top line into those systems before they are activated.
Okay, so how it works, because it has been a little while since we played this, James. You have to have a command die to activate the other stuff on the board. So, for example, if you wanted to fire lasers, you're not just assigning dies to the laser section. You have to assign die to the laser section.
Oh, yeah, and then you have to have the
corresponding command die.
Yeah, which makes it even harder. So, yes, if you want to activate a red system, you have to have a red command die in the HUD. Or
yellow, yeah. But the other thing you can do, and this is what you were alluding to, James, is you can choose one of your HUD dies to assign as a wild, air quotes, to any of your systems. So, for example, if I've put 3 command dice in my HUD, but I've only done enough to activate 2 systems, it makes sense to spend one of those HUD dies in one of those systems in order to do a little bit more.
Yes, it does.
So that's essentially how that works. One final thing I do want to talk about with regards to the board and the die allocations and stuff like that is the shields.
Yes, we were getting. Well, I was going to bring the shields up if you didn't.
Yes, because obviously shields can be depleted as people start shooting at you. They're going to get damaged. And at the start of the game, James, you've got a section here where you can allocate die. But at the start of the game, 3 of those 6 dies will be covered.
Yes.
Which means that, say, for example, you have completely destroyed my front shields. As I'm now very exposed there. I can assign dies to regenerate some of those shields.
Yes, you can repair 2 shields if you complete that subsystem.
Indeed. Now, these are one of the ones that have the link to them. If I do that on this round, James,
yep,
I get to heal 2 shields, which is great. The downside to that is I then reveal another square,
yes,
another die face, which means the next time I do it, it's now going to cost me 4 die.
Yep.
If I do it again, it's then going to cost me 5 die. Do it again, it's going to cost me the full 6.
Yeah. I like that, though, that it gets progressively harder to re-raise your shields.
Yes. Now, I do have a question for you, James. In all the games we've played, have you ever seen anyone ever actually do it?
Yeah, me.
Oh, did you do it? Oh, okay, fair
once. Only once.
Okay.
When it was the easiest. The second I took one of those tokens off, it was...
Okay. Did you feel that it was worth it?
Yes. I think it's safe. It was in the 3-player game we played with Anthony.
Yes.
And yes, I think it saved me.
Okay, fair enough. See, I've always looked at it and sort of gone, I've never once done it, never even thought about doing it because I was like, it's a lot of die to sacrifice. You know, if I took an absolute battering really early on, like say, for example, it was a 3-player game and I was getting hit by both you and little Jimmy.
Well, that's why I did it, because I'd taken a broadside from you and Ants, and you were still in those positions. So I'd lost two sides of shield facings.
Yeah.
And was still in both your firing arcs. It's like, I've got to get
something.
Right. Who's first? I think it's Jason is going next after me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to get the shields up facing Jason. Otherwise, I'm going to get annihilated.
Yeah.
And I can't move out. Yeah. Basically, I don't have the movement to get out of this predicament. And it, damage works exactly the way you would expect it to. First, you take the shields down because it is side facing. So once you got no shields, you start knocking off whole tokens.
Yep. Exactly. And that's the thing. I really like that again because, again, it adds an element of realism to it, doesn't it? Because once the side is down and you know the shields are down, what side are you going to go for?
Yeah. I mean, it is in that respect to other games that I've played that are similar to this, like Star Wars X-Wing and things like that. Yeah. It's a little bit easier for things like that because the weapons are 360-degree firing arcs.
Yep. Okay.
So it is a viable strategy in this game rather than expending dice to do that is to just turn your ship to a face that's still got shields.
Yeah.
If you do that on some of the slightly more in-depth games, great, but your weapons will be out of arc.
Of course. Yeah.
So I don't know if I like or dislike that because there is that element of risk in games like that. It's like, well, if I want to attack, I need to either get those shields back up or expose myself to make an attack run.
Yeah. So I guess the next logical question here, James, is this game can be played 1, 2, 3 or 4 players. Now, in a 4-player game, it's teams only. So two people per side. In a 3-player game, it is all v all elimination. And then in a 2-player game, it's fairly obvious it's 1v1. I have no idea how the solo player works. I don't play solo player games. So, yeah, I can't comment on that. But yeah, at what level, James, do you think this game is at its best?
I've not played a 4-player game, so can't comment on the teams aspect. I really enjoyed the 3-on-3.
Okay, yeah.
The 3-on-3.
The fatal 3-way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And the 2-player, I think, works. I mean, 2-player, it's a little bit, even though the board is tiny, it's a bit too easy to basically just
run away.
Yeah, well, not even that. It basically becomes a missile fest because you basically skirt the edge of the board and just chuck torpedoes at each other.
Yeah.
Whereas on a 3-player, it's a lot harder to do that because someone will go on an attack run.
Yeah. See, I find for me, it's best played at 2, mainly because I think I prefer a little bit more strategic side to the game. However, at 3 players, it's a totally different beast.
Yeah.
Because it is just a cluster.
Yes.
Because there's torpedoes going everywhere. Now, again, just to cover how the torpedoes work, when you fire a torpedo, it drops off your wing, and then it moves itself around the board.
Yes.
At the end of every turn, it moves 1 hex towards
the nearest player. That's very thick, because that's why 3-player is such a...
It doesn't move towards you. Like, if it's your missile, it won't move towards you, but it'll move to whoever.
Yeah, it won't. It can't hit the person who fired it.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is, in a 3-player, you, for example, might shoot that torpedo at me.
Yeah.
But if I then book it...
Yeah. An ant happens to slide in, it's going to divert off to go towards him.
Yeah, it's just going to go, nope, new target.
Yeah, exactly. And when you've got 3 players, each player being able to fire, owning 2 missiles, because you can only ever fire 1 per turn.
Yep.
And that's only if you get your die to do it. But there's always a reserve of 2.
Yeah.
So at some point, if someone hasn't destroyed them, and you've had 2 turns of firing missiles, there's now 2 of your missiles flying around on the table.
Yeah.
And you've done exactly the same. That's 4 missiles. Ant has done exactly the same. And then all of a sudden, what is ultimately a 17 hex board...
Yep, becomes very crowded.
becomes incredibly crowded because obviously 3 of those places are ships. And then another 6... would be missiles. It's chaos.
Yes.
And that is really fun.
So,
I do enjoy it.
It should also be noted that the missiles won't seek each other, so you can't shoot down a missile with a missile.
Yep.
But you can laser them.
Yes, you can destroy them by shooting them. Yeah.
Yes, because they are that slow-moving. But again, it's a strategic choice. Do I try and convince the missile to hit someone else, risk it, or do I shoot it down and waste dice?
Yes.
And the nice thing is that, yes, you only have 2 missiles each, but when one is either hits something or is destroyed, it goes back into your pool. So they are technically unlimited. You can only ever have 2 on the board.
Yes.
I think that's why I prefer the 3-player mode, because it is carnage on a board, basically. To me, it's, we didn't personally experience this, but if you basically get a 2-player game with the kind of players who will just skirt the outside of the board, drop a torpedo, as soon as it gets in range, the other person lasers it, and they just end up dancing around the outside of it. It's like, that's going to get really boring really fast.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I can see that happening. Yeah. Basically, no one wanting to be the first one to sort of go, I'm going for it.
Yeah. I think, for me, like I said, 2-player is where this game excels, providing it's the right 2 people.
Yeah.
As you said, if you're going to get someone who is just going to sit on the edge of the board, it's going to get old very, very quickly. And that half an hour is not going to be half an hour. It's going to be an hour.
Yeah.
Which is way too long for this game.
Indeed.
The 3-player mode is by far what I would want to do with this game if I wanted to have a really good, fun laugh and a good time.
Exactly, because that strategy is just not viable in 3-player.
No. And like you said, like the wormholes really do add an element of awesomeness to the game for me, because again, the only thing that can't travel through a wormhole are the missiles. So if you're struggling to get away from a missile, you can basically gun it to the nearest wormhole.
Was it you or me who did that to Ant? He dropped a torpedo like 1 hex away from one. I can't remember if it was you or me.
Yeah.
And we just went, whoop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it was me that jumped in the wormhole, much to several expletives coming out of your mouth, because the torpedo immediately went,
I'm going for him. Yep.
Oh, hello.
So, yeah, I think ultimately, if I had to pick a level that I want to play this at, it really would depend what mood I'm in. I do enjoy this as a 2-player. I think me and you will have a good game of this at 2 players.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that that's for everyone.
Yeah.
So my recommendation on this game really is 3 players, unless you've got the right partner who is as happy to just gun for you as you are for them.
Yeah.
At which point you're not going to have that stalemate of flying round.
Yeah. I mean,
doing aerobatics, basically.
There is still that thing. I mean, I've used a couple of other games, but it's like 2-player to me on this is either going to be skirt the edge of the board, which is going to get old very quickly.
Yep.
Or it's effectively jousting.
Yes.
You're just going to head run at each other, hit the edge of the board, turn around, and then it's going to come down. It's like, again, it's the 3-player just causes you to actually, all right, I need to think about this.
Yeah. Okay.
I would be interested to try the 4-player, the 2v2.
Yeah, I think we'll have to make sure that happens soon. I personally, I'm not fond of games that switch it up by going, oh no, you have to do it with teams. But
I think this
it'd be interesting.
I'm normally in the same boat as you, but I think this game might be different because of the small board. I still think you'll get that cluster from the 3-player in it, because it is like the way I imagine it going is you're going to start off with your teammate. You go, right, you're going to go for so and so. You're going to go for so and so.
Yep,
and that's going to work for round 1.
Yeah.
The minute those two cross over, it's like, oh, okay, right now I'm going, and there's a torpedo coming.
Yeah, I can see there being a little bit of cluster going on there as well.
Yeah.
Especially, again, if you've got all 4 players on there and they all fire 2 torpedoes, that's even less space than in that 3-player game. So, yeah, I can see it being fun, and I definitely want to give it a go. But how many people like doing that whole 2v2 or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm normally in the same. X-Wing was another game where I didn't mind doing 2v2 matches.
Yeah.
Because it did produce some interesting things rather than the typical 1v1 matches. Yeah. And there you didn't tend to get as much triple threat in X-Wing. It was either teams or single or 1v1 or 2v2.
Yeah.
And the 2v2 really did change it up a little bit. So I think this might be of a similar vein.
Okay, cool. Maybe we'll have to make sure we get that done pretty soon. Report back, James.
Indeed.
But we've been nattering for a little while, so I think let's go for the final thoughts. James, what are your final thoughts on Starfighter's Rapid Fire?
It is a really, really fun little game, and aside from that one rather large negative about the dice, it's a brilliant little game.
Yeah, I think the dice thing can be solved pretty quickly by making sure you've got a dice tray. Because at least then you can be a bit more vigorous with rolling.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to have those rounded edges. But yeah, I mean, final thoughts for me on this one. This was genuinely a tough game for me to figure out my final thoughts, because honestly, like I said, I don't very often like these real-time style games. And if I'm in the mood to play one, am I going to go for Starfighter's Rapid Fire over, for example, something like Project Elite, which is in the same vein a rapid, frantic dice rolling game, and it's a tough one because this one only really has a couple of things going for it over Project Elite, and that is it doesn't take up anywhere near as much space. Short on space needs to be this game.
Setup time's got to be one of them.
The setup time on this is a couple of minutes, whereas Project Elite is substantially more. And the problem here is I would want to choose this one over Project Elite on gameplay time. How much time have we got to play a game? This game is a few hairs short of a comb over quicker than Project Elite. Is it quick enough to be determined as a short game? If it's 30 minutes, yes.
I would argue that if you're playing with people who have got over they're not playing it for the first time, effectively, this game is a hell of a lot shorter than half an hour.
It can be. It can be. If you've got some very, very strategic-minded people playing, James, I think they could drag it out for quite some time. I think back to one of the games we played. It lasted quite a while because we were all very much in the strategic mind, and it only sped up when I threw caution to the wind and said, sod the strategy, I'm just going to chuck dice and start speeding this game, because then you guys were struggling to keep up with your strategy, and the game picked up and it degraded and ended very, very quickly. I lost, obviously, but I sped that game up.
If for people who are wondering how that game went, that was the 3-player game with me and Anthony, if I remember correctly. And if you've ever seen the third Pirates of the Caribbean film, where right at the end, Lord Beckett ends up in between the Flying Dutchman and the Black Pearl.
Yeah.
That was basically how it ended.
Yeah, exactly. With no
we
shields.
even got to yell fire.
It was great. Great fun. But right, very quickly, collection status for me. Right now, the game is a keeper. But it's not a game that's going to see the table very much. I do, however, feel that I'm going to get enough play out of it to warrant its value. So I can't say the game doesn't have value, because I do think it does, especially at sub £20. Really, really good value. Now, obviously, take into account that I don't believe you get the miniatures. I don't believe that you get the wooden meeples. I don't believe you get any of that deluxeification stuff. I think it's just punch board. But I could be wrong. I'm really not 100% on that. I think 20 quid is pretty good for the game. Would you say that's a reasonable price for the game?
I definitely would.
Yeah.
I would say it's worth it in the form we think it comes in. If the miniatures are included in the retail for sub 20, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's good enough for me that I'm warranting that I want to paint those miniatures.
Yeah.
Give this game its credit and actually have some nice miniatures painted on the board. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It'll be interesting to see what we say about this game this time next year.
Indeed. I mean, to me, it's a brilliant, fun little game that I will always sit down and play if it's on offer. I just need Jason to get his needle file out and round off those dice.
I can't modify dice, James. Oh, it's a felony offence, that is.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I make an exception for those dice. It's just, all you need to do is on the corners, just gently round the corners off so they actually roll.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it?
It's a sin to modify dice to cheat. This is modifying dice to make them playable.
Yeah.
Either that or we need to get 3D print some dice for this game.
Well, yeah, that too. So, James, do you recommend the game?
I would.
Yeah, good. I think I do too, but I will just say one thing. Do I think you need the deluxe or the Kickstarter version? No, I do not. I don't think it's worth paying the extra to get them, but to get the retail version, definitely worth it. Starfighters, Rapid Fire. James, not a bad little game. It's not a bad little game. There's a few negatives there, 100%, but what game doesn't have negatives? Let's be honest. Is this going to be a game we're going to take with us to Games Expo, do you think?
I think we should.
Yeah? You think we should? Do you reckon that'll be a good one for the group?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's the next thing, isn't it? We need to figure out what games am I going to be lugging up there, James? Because you ain't going to carry anything, are you?
Not unless you want me to bring Nemesis.
Well, I mean, you could, I guess. That would be quite fun. That's good, because, we'll stick that in a bag, because then the bag will have more room, which means I can stick some of my games in there. Excellent stuff. Mm-hmm. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on Starfighters Rapid Fire? We'd like to hear those thoughts. Let us know on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or on our Discord server. Links to all of those are in the podcast description. James, it's time for us to head off. Mm-hmm. Are we going to try and play a game this evening? Or have we got enough games coming up over the next few days?
We've got enough games coming up.
That's the wrong answer, James. There's never enough games, is there? Well, till next week, I have been Jason.
And I've been James.
And you've been listening to the Meeple Minded podcast. Join us next week for more tabletop gaming goodness. Ta-ta and goodbye.